the word chronic, that word has become a greater part of our current vocabulary as a population. It's not a word that was used a lot back in the 1800s, but as time goes on, we're using that word more and more. And I think it's because number one is we relate that word to illness, right? Chronic illness. So they kind of go together. But you can have chronic behavior and there can be chronic situations in your life.
That's beautifully said. I began to dig in and well and investigate. And I learned that there's a spiritual definition and an emotion behind what these words actually mean. And chronic itself was a lack of forgiveness for those who have harmed us, including ourselves. So chronic then began to unwind for me this investigation of why I came with like chronic confusion. Why was I confused all the time? And it's like a constant repetition of my own negative patterns of thought. So it led me on a rabbit hole. Are my thoughts really creating my reality?
Mm-hmm.
So chronic became, for me, the main factor of my life until I stepped out into a different light of it.
Right, right. I like to look at it as becoming the observer of your life. And that's when I realized I had chronic behaviors. I wasn't calling them chronic behaviors, but I recognized it as soon as I stepped almost behind yourself and you're watching your life and how you respond to things. And you start realizing that you do have some chronic behaviors. You have things that you do that don't serve you.
Well, as you're speaking, I hear Jim Carrey saying, look at your life like a play, and him being a very awakened individual. How do I begin to step outside of these actions that I'm playing and becoming more the main character?
Right. And or the hero, because all stories are kind of built around a hero's journey, right? And so if we think about putting ourselves, because that brings up that saying, like, you are the person you've been waiting for. You are the one who will save you. You are the one that will love you. You are the one that will lift you up. You are it. Right.
My biggest flex is I would be the person who would save me as a child now, right? And when I began to learn that that was like an archetype, I was like, what's archetypes? What are these other aspects of spirituality? And I learned that there is these personalities we step into. Dr. Joe Dispenza, like, your personal reality is based on your person, like your reality is based on you and what you perceive the world to be. So when we stop and pause and actually begin to feel why we may be experiencing a chronic behavior or a chronic thought pattern or a chronic feeling in our body, it's an opportunity, in my opinion, to actually go back in. Psychology has now stated emotions have to be validated before they can be regulated, which opened up this whole awareness for me that, oh my gosh, society is walking around just waiting to be validated. So
Yeah.
you're being met with almost the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, which is just them trying to protect themselves because the emotion in their body has yet to be validated because no one said, hey, you have to actually self-soothe. You have to say, hey, I'm choosing to shift that chronic thought pattern and figure out maybe what's looping. If
Right.
you're ever avoiding feeling something,
Right.
stop and say why. Chronic for that. 90 seconds. It takes 90 seconds for a sensation to run through your body. It was a really cool fact I learned.
That emotions have a pathway. So they start to arise in you and you might feel a flutter in your heart, and then they gain momentum, and then you're wanting to express it and you'll feel it in your throat, and then as it starts to reach its peak, we tend to do one of two things. We either let it hit the peak and it releases and let go, or we're like, oh, I can't do that here. I can't feel that emotion. I can't think those thoughts. I've got to shove it down. I got to like repress that emotion. And it's funny because it's like right at that, just before the peak. And if we could just let it peak, it dissipates afterwards.
Thank you for interjecting with that beautiful wisdom, piecing together, right? That aspect of what causes chronic illness or dis-ease in the physical body,
Yes.
because we have to express the emotion. Emotions are waves, right?
Right. It's energy in motion. And emotion
Yeah,
is
energy, motion,
emotion.
Albert Einstein, right? So
Yeah.
what's the opposite of that? And when we often can secure the insecurity, we have to be the one to secure our own insecurity. What? So when I figured out that chronic meant metaphysically lack of forgiveness for those who have harmed us, including ourselves, that brought me into the awareness. I was also that part of society that was thinking the world was happening to me.
Right.
Mm.
Because that's what we've been conditioned to believe.
Mhm.
That's what we thought right from the get-go when we were kids. We were being told that this is the world, and it's things are happening all the time, and there's things to be scared of, and there's things to avoid, and because all that stuff is out there, and you got to be super careful. I mean, my mom was over the top with worry, and she just placed that all on us. And when you grow up believing that the world could be harmful, what do you create? You create a harmful world. So to
Mhm.
step into this idea of thinking about what you're thinking about, noticing your behavior, you can break the pattern. Any chronic pattern in your life, you can break that. You have control. You are the only one that can really do it. You
When
have
I
to.
realized we are choosers and then we are creators,
Yeah.
I realized, so I then that piggybacked to, oh, it's not happening to me. I'm not the victim of what the universe gifted me, as I use that phrase now. In 2012, I was gifted a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis, a chronic illness. They gave me a new identity. And for the last 14 years, I have peeled back this identity and became the authentic version of me, and understanding rheumatoid meant unable to accept that we're good enough because my mom placed that in me.
Right. Right.
So then I created that all around me. And I created chronic confusion in relationships and dishonesty and limerence and all these things that felt so hard, but I was the one actually believing it to create it. And then that belief that I was bad or unworthy, raised in that griping chronic like environment, of always wondering what everyone else was doing. That's the part of rheumatoid arthritis as well. It told me like, oh, you're right. When's the last time I actually focused on me? And when you start to unravel these miracle cases of chronic illness and disease and cancer healing, it falls into how much energy are you putting out versus taking in. Are you really focusing everything you have on everyone else but you? And the
Right. And what you're kind of saying is like projecting, like,
yes,
it's not in me. It's all of you that are doing this to me. And you have to, if you're ever going to escape victimhood, you have to recognize what you yourself have been thinking and doing, the behaviors, the thoughts, what situations are you putting yourself in, what illnesses are you creating. You're doing this to yourself.
yeah, I woke up to that, and I have a really cool journal entry from the awakening stage, like around 2020. I realized that space wasn't just, it's like society wise, it was actually an inner world as well, because it even has a meaning too, metaphysically, and how it was presenting in the human body. And it showed me that I actually had a role to play.
Oh yeah.
And then
Def-
that acceptance.
we definitely have our roles, don't we?
Or do
I like to tell my clients that you're living your whole life inside your own mind.
yeah.
Your all the things that you think are happening out here are actually happening in here. It's in your own mind. And so when you can start evaluating those thoughts and thinking about how you have placed yourself in that victimhood state, a victim of illness or a victim of other people's wrongdoings or a victim of neglect or abuse, like these things happen to me, you have no control over that. But when you start
Mm.
shifting things around and you put that in, like, I'm living my whole life inside my head, you can't get inside my mind knowing what I'm thinking or creating or whatever. If I can realize that, then I can change it. I can change my thoughts and I can
Mhm.
change my life because I've changed my thoughts.
He changed my life as well, Dr. Wayne Dyer. And part of my journey, 2017, acceptance. It's huge. So I learned that compassionate self-forgiveness is a practice that was taught out of the University of Santa Monica. And it it literally freed me of judging myself. Wow, like who'd have thought that I could be the one to free the loop of judging, to free the loop of that thought that kept me in that limiting belief or mindset pattern or, you know, chronic.
It's powerful because what you just said is that you altered a pattern. You are putting an end to a chronic thought pattern, chronic illnesses, and chronic behavior that was basically gifted to you from your ancestry, your parents and their parents before them. And isn't that wonderful that you have the courage and the will and the desire to make those changes, not just for yourself, but everything you do impacts your entire family forward and backwards.
Thank you for recognizing and I appreciating that. And it called right back to the scoliosis that runs in my family. Idiopathic scoliosis, what's that? A chronic disease, meaning that it came from nowhere. We don't understand. I have that physical proof. I don't have a curve in my spine anymore, but my grandfather has full structured hardware from the tail all the way to the back of his neck.
Mhm.
And part of this awakening process, we even had a conversation about, he's like, yeah, one day they tried to have me do the chiropractor and all these other things, but we just did it this way. I was like, I'll never have that, but now I can choose a different way.
Right.
It helped me, it ties together because scoliosis has a metaphysical meaning behind it, that it's fear of the next attack from a loved one and wanting to avoid it, yet not wanting the loved one to know that we are afraid of them and their power. So, as we just mentioned, how childhood abuse, trauma, neglect, limiting beliefs, all of the things that society has, like it's not our parents' fault, it's not our parents' fault, it's quite literally just passed down. So when we can actually pause and say, oh, I can choose differently.